to help them get into work and then progress when they are in work. And so that's a program we started rolling out a couple of months ago. And one of our guest speakers today from Skanska is one of our wonderful partners for that really important program to support unemployed people who are always really hard hit in times of economic downturn. So hopefully that gives you a lightning fast feel for us, and I'll be facilitating the session today. Emma.
Thanks, Simon. So my name is Emma Jennings, and I am the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator for enei. So I'll just give you a quick introduction of enei for those who aren't aware or who aren't members. And we are basically the UK's leading employer network, and we cover all aspects of workplace equality and inclusion. So we're the one-stop shop, or have been described as the one-stop shop for advice, consultancy, training, networking, and also case studies and best practice, along with our resources that we provide members, our benchmarking and our thought leadership training programs. We're not for profit, but we do support 380 members across the UK, which is growing with their equality, inclusion and diversity journey. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to shoot off in about 10 minutes, but I have got my email at the end of the slides here. So if anyone has any questions around enei and membership, please do feel free to look on our website to see what we offer organisations, but also feel free to contact me after this session. So just to give you a bit of an overview as well, if we move on to the next slide, please. We're looking at also why are we here, and have we got another slide there, Simon? Thank you. So we had a little look a few months ago, and we had some joint working with MyKindaFuture and looking at the research for lived experiences for the return to talent pool. So some of the key themes, just to give you a brief overview and to set the scene a little bit, we found that there were three key themes that really came out of it for return of talent. And those were really keeping the focus on the lived experience of employees is really central to what we do. So that was part of our research with MyKindaFuture and our collaboration. But those three key themes came out as understanding the difference of lived experiences of the return of talent pool. We know that everyone is different, and there can be a multitude of different reasons why people come back to work. And understanding those is really key for an organisation in the touch points for their returner journey. What we found is that organisations that provide humanistic personal touch points along the returner journey are really successful, and building that into a returner programme is a key indicator of the future success for businesses and also the participants and those that are returning to work. And one thing that really came out as well was that equality and inclusion and fairness is really key to embed that within returner programmes. So looking at, in addition to health and well-being, we should really bear in mind the importance of inclusion and diversity in any decisions that are made or any plans that are made, from ensuring that those decisions don't discriminate against any particular group of employees. And looking at after the pandemic and COVID and the effects of that, we need to be much more aware of looking at flexible working, hybrid working, and actually things like that can really have an effect on returner talent. So for example, decisions around flexible working, home or part-time working, or due to school closures, etc., might have a disproportionate effect on women and can lead to discrimination claims, etc. So all these things we need to start embedding within to returner talent, looking at our policies, etc. But it's really about fostering an inclusive work environment that takes into account all the different experiences that people have had during the pandemic, and looking at that going forward. So that's what we're really going to be talking a bit more about in this session. And we're really lucky to have Natalie and Christina with us, who are going to talk about their experiences on leading the return of talent programmes that they've done in their organisations. But in terms of the business case, we know that lost talent is costly to both human and financial terms within organisations. and enabling those who've stepped out of the workplace for whatever reason to return and stay, bringing a wealth of valuable skills, perspectives and experiences really does benefit everyone. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Simon, but I'll end my introduction there. But again, if anyone has any questions after this session, please feel free to get in contact with me. But over to you, Simon. Thank you.
Emma, thank you. Yeah, and the research that Emma referenced, there's a link to it in the slide here, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of these slides, obviously on the back of today, and then you'll be able to access that research if you've not already seen it. And just to pick up on that point that Emma made, which I think is a really crucial one, is that inclusion piece. You know, we'll all know in all our organisations, how important the issues around inclusion and diversity are. And I think as an example of that, and I think in terms of framing the part of the conversation that we're going to have today, is, you know, return of talent gives a great opportunity to bring more diverse people into an organisation. But if you don't have your inclusion right, it's going to be hard. And it's a really simplistic example, but it's a really nice way of summing it up. I think we're seeing more and more organisations talking about I and D rather than D and I, because there's this realization that if we haven't created an inclusive culture and inclusive environment, all that great diverse talent that we're bringing in, we're not going to get the most of, and those individuals aren't going to be able to give of their best and be of their best. So I think that inclusion piece is hugely important, and I'm sure it's something that will be that is highly likely to come up when we do the roundtables a bit later on. So that was just a bit of a scene setter from us. The main event is obviously our guest speakers that we've got today. So, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Natalie Jones from Highways England, and she's going to be the first of our two speakers. And I'm not going to waste any time waffling on about her. I'm going to need Natalie to speak for herself. So Natalie, over to you, and I'll advance the slides when you need me to.
Thank you, Simon. So yes, I'm Natalie Jones from Highways England, and I'm talent delivery lead. So my role encompasses all elements of talent, one of which has been the returners programme. So that's been from setting it up and still managing it to date. Next slide, Simon. So I thought I'd just run you through a bit of a synopsis of, you know, how we've got to where we are at the moment. So we set up our returners programme in 2017. And some of the reasons why we decided to set it up. So as Highways England is predominantly based around STEM roles, we know that there's a skills shortage in STEM, and particularly a shortage of females across STEM as well. For us as well, there's decreasing levels of females in our middle to senior roles, and of course we wanted to improve our diversity mix as well across both STEM and that middle to senior level. So it felt like actually there was an untapped pool of people out there within the returners space. So our programme is open to anybody, but we do find that it is particularly females who apply, so it does start to tick those boxes. Our objectives were around closing our gender pay gap in our middle to senior roles. So whilst we don't have a big gap, but something that to help, and not just by bringing returners in, but also, you know, promoting ourselves as a family-friendly employer. So it's that wider piece as well, not just about the returners that you're bringing in, it's the perception of us as an organisation, and to give talented individuals the opportunity to enter back into the workplace. So if we'd like to go on to the next slide. So our programme, as I said, it's been running since 2017, and we run one programme a year, so we do it on an annual basis. We were doing that so that we'd go out around Easter time and we'd start in September, but with the pandemic we've just had to shift those timelines slightly, but we're still on that annual cycle. So for us it's a programme now that is embedded into our organisation. It's one that gets, I guess, broadcast, everybody knows about it. It's one that gets reported up to our CEO and to board. So it is one that has over the years got some high importance attached to it, and some gravitas as to the importance of why we're running our returners programme. So as I said, it's open to any gender. You know, there are no biases in how we recruit. We don't specifically go out and specify. any particular gender, but it has predominantly been females to date. We've only hired one male so far, and that's just by sheer coincidence. We also base ours on transferable skills wherever possible. So as we say, we recognise that there's a shortage in STEM, in skills, in females, and actually a lot of our roles don't require you to be you know, an engineer, for example. A lot of our roles are project management based, where you can take those transferable skills and put that into a number of other roles. So where possible, we try and find roles where they can use those transferable skills, which helps us to recruit based on those skills rather than based on previous experience. It's 6 months long, so we chose it to be 6 months long, and we've kept it at that length. It feels right, and that's because it takes a while for people to come into an organisation and to really understand the role and to understand the organisation, even if you've got previous experience and you're moving from one role to another. So particularly with returners who have been out of the job market for a long time. So we've had returners who have been out of work for nearly 20 years. A lot has changed in 20 years. Even if we just think about the technology 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been sitting here on Teams. We'd have really suffered during now our virtual world. So it's very much about actually getting people to be able to come in and embed. We don't have a probation period, so that 6 months for us acts like a bit of a probation to really give people the time to come in, settle in, and us to give them the support that they need to get them back into the ways of working, as well as the ways of Highways England and of their role. So there's always the opportunity with our roles. So every role that our returners go into is a permanent role as well. So and that's about, we really want to bring in talent and keep the talent. We're investing in people during this programme. We've identified talented individuals through our recruitment process. So we don't want them to just come in for 6 months and then lose them. So if it has been working out for both parties, then at the end of that 6 months, we just make them permanent. And to date, there has been over 90% success rate on that. So there's that ability to work flexibly. So pre-pandemic, we were always a fairly flexible organisation anyway. So there's never been the need to be in the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5. It's always been very team-based led. Yes, it's become more flexible over the past 12 to 18 months, but we always gave the returners the opportunity to actively speak to us about what they wanted their working patterns to be. So whether that was condensed hours, part-time, just flexible hours during the day, we always make that very clear and open that dialogue right from the recruitment process. We think it's important to acknowledge that actually returners are likely to still have some responsibilities. A lot of our returners have taken time out for care and responsibilities, predominantly for children or for parents, and some of those responsibilities are still there when they come back to work. So it's just about making that journey and that transition smoother. So we work with an organisation called Women's Returners to help us deliver some of our programmes. They help us with our recruitment. They also deliver coaching sessions for us throughout the programme as well, which we find are really useful. We get really good feedback from our returners on that additional support that's there and that coaching that helps them transition back into the workplace. And it also allows us to tap into a pool of returners that Women's Returners also has. Provide them a mentor within the business, so that's about helping them settle into the business. A buddy from the returners alumni. So obviously, as we're now nearly 5 years in, that alumni has been building over the years. It's important, we feel, to give returners kind of a buddy from that network, as that acts as somebody who has been through the process, who understands some of the stresses and the pressures and how the returners coming into the business feel. So that's more of a support network on a personal level, whereas a mentor is more about the business level. We do networking sessions for them to learn more about the business from senior leaders. So that is something as well we get really positive reviews about. So that allows them to network more. So some of our flicking next slide, Simon. So some of our challenges and lessons learned. So some of our challenges have been gaining manager buy-in, having the right roles at the right time for the right people. So that's about, actually, as we said, we want everybody to stay with us. So we want to make sure we've always got a permanent role at the start, which can be a challenge from the planning perspective. Making sure managers really understand about what the returners programme is and how we kind of gain that buy-in from them, and how they understand the value. And just because someone's been out of work doesn't mean that they haven't been doing stuff during their career break, and how they bring that to the table for us. Over recruiting. So I think in the first year we took on too many returners and didn't realise actually how much support that they need. So I, for instance, also manage our graduates and apprentices, and returners in some ways are very much similar in that they need that extra support because they have been out of the workplace for so long, to kind of wrap your arms around a little bit more and provide more of that mentoring support to them. And providing that right level of support as well within that through all the various different levels that we've just discussed. So lessons learnt for us is take time with the process, don't rush it, as otherwise that can, I think, set you up for a failure before you've even got anybody through the door. Make sure that there is business engagement, make sure you're involving the line managers in the process, so they're really bought into it all the way through, and that they're bought into the returner that's going to be in their teams. Managing those expectations as well all the way through, not having too many in every cohort, to make sure you can give that level of support, and consider what roles are most appropriate. You know, whilst I say we mainly do transferable skills, we have also some successes with some of my more specialist areas, and over time I think we've learned which roles work for us as an organisation and which potentially don't. So it's just some of the background thinking that you know, our lessons for us is to really think about before we go through each cycle each year. That's everything from me, and a quick round robin of Highways England and our returners programme. So amazing. Simon, back over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was really great, and it's really great for you to be open about the process and what you've done and what worked well and what didn't work so well, and the learners that you had from it. And that was a really important part of what we wanted to share. And I'm conscious that the great stuff that's just been shared now, you may have some questions you want to ask, and you may have seen the chat, but please do hold on to those questions. And when we go into the breakout sessions, both Natalie and Christina will be in those respective rooms, and so you'll be able to ask them some of the questions that popped into mind as you've been talking. So thank you. And now I'm going to move on to Christina, and she is going to share some insights into their programme and why they do it and what they've learned. And Christina doesn't have slides, so she's just going to talk to you. So I'm going to unshare my screen.
Appreciate it, Simon. I am prepared. I'm just not a slides person, and I've come to accept that.
Absolutely fine, Christina. So I'm going to unshare so that we can see you in all your glory.
Yeah. And thanks, Natalie. It's so great to hear kind of the lessons you've had, as Skanska's also been on a similar journey. So I've been with Skanska for 9 years, and I lead our inclusion and diversity work in the UK, but I've been lucky enough to work in Sweden, Norway and the US. Skanska's been doing return to work programs for 7 years, so it's safe to say we've had a lot of lessons learned, and we've changed our approaches throughout the years of how we run these type of programs. So what I'll do is I'll start at the beginning, because if some of you are looking at kind of setting up a returner program, for us, you know, I think Natalie gave some great examples as to why you'd want to start a return to work program, supporting your diversity, your gender pay gap, as it does tend to tackle kind of getting a lot of that mid to senior level women in. But for us in Skanska, actually, it was looking at the skills shortage we had. We continuously have difficult to fill roles that we are just permanently pipelining for. So commercial, engineers, designers, quantity surveyors. And so for us, we actually wanted to use a returner program as a solution to that problem, because we were constantly looking for this talent. You know, we were going through the same methods of recruitment as we'd always done, and guess what, you're just kind of getting the same result. So when we kind of pitched to the business about doing a returners program, yes, there was the benefit of being able to diversify, but it was also us trying to fill that business need. There was a lot of skepticism that we would be able to find returners to fill these hard to fill roles, as I would describe them. And I have to say, myself, the hiring managers and our recruitment experts were very surprised in the talent that will come through the door when you put this stuff out there. So for us, when we first started, similar to Highways England, we worked with women returners. We felt as an organisation there are a lot of expertise that we don't have to understand the needs of a returner. So we thought it was important, especially at the beginning, to partner with an expert organisation that knew this demographic group to guide us. So when we first started, we would ring fence certain roles, and we decided to run them as cohorts. We were very considerate around the time of year when to run the cohort, taking in the fact with summer holidays, and a lot of returners can be women that are, you know, with child caring responsibilities. Again, we made our returners program open to everyone, regardless of gender, but we did feel we actually had to emphasize that quite a bit, as when we were partnering with women returners, I mean, it's something they said they come up with anyway. People see the name of their organisation and assume it is only for women. So we did have to put certain effort into making that clear that was not the case. For us, what is defined as a returner, we set a rough rule that it would be someone that's been out of work for 18 months. The reason for doing this is, yes, you can get a lot of women that have been out for maternity leave. And I know there is a lot when you're coming back from maternity or paternity leave where you feel you need support. And we felt there is quite a lot of support there already. And we know the longer the gap, the more a returner's confidence can drop. So we had a rough thing of looking at about if someone had been out of work for 18 months, but we were flexible. Obviously, if, you know, candidates came through and they'd been out for 16 months, you know, it was considered kind of, you know, with common sense applied. So when we first ran these cohorts, we would have it in the range of probably 7 to 10 candidates was great. And what we would do is we would get different parts of the business to ring fence a role, one of these hard to fill roles where it was like, are you willing to try something new? And for them, the kind of the commercial sell was running a return to work program was their way of being able to try before you buy. So they got to work with this candidate, you know, pay them the full salary. And if it wasn't a match, you know, after the 3 months that, you know, there is a break there if they wanted to not go with that candidate. I don't think that situation ever happened. The only times that did occur is when a returner came and actually found the trial of the returnship program showed them that actually they weren't ready and with their personal life to kind of come back to work. So it's a break clause that kind of works for both sides. And the other business case is running a returners program cheaper than going to recruitment agencies. So for us, that again was a bigger sell of, you know, why not give this a go? Some of the lessons learned we've had over the years is you've got to be considerate with timing. There were some years when we were kind of proceeding with running our cohorts, you know, starting kind of, you know, just after the summertime, and we had collective consultation going on in parts of the business, and we realized we had to be sensitive of those that had jobs at risk, and if you were ring fencing certain roles for returners. So there was a time where we did have to delay the program until the end of the year because of the situation the business was in. So that is something to be mindful of where your business is at, you know, which for us was, a lesson learned. How we've evolved our program over the years, though, is we used to run cohorts, but what we found there is a lot of the different returners would be in different parts of the business. And although we had the coaching and the sessions where they would come together, we still found they didn't have that same kind of network that they could get if they were located in the same place. So we decided to take the returners program from being centralized to some of our major projects running and delivering them. So this meant some of our large construction projects would host the return to work program, and therefore the individuals were there in the same project, the same space, and they could build a stronger network and kind of buddy system, as it were, over time. So we did see benefits in doing that. I would say, with the past year, people have become a lot more digitally accessible and getting used to networking and, connecting over computers. So maybe that behavior might have changed, but at the time people really felt they wanted to be in person connecting, and that was a little harder with how people were spread out over the UK. We have then done a new evolution of our returnship programs, and our latest project, instead of running a cohort now, because we have run cohorts for a number of years, we have a number of returners obviously in the business that act as that network. So now we can be a lot more agile with throughout the year. They can choose to ring fence a job role and get that person coming in as a returner. The reason that can work for us now is because we have the people already in the business to connect them up with that have been through that process and already. So that's why we've not had to use the cohort method. The cohort method is invaluable for when you're starting, but we did have some drawbacks of timing of jobs can get delayed, and the recruitment process, and sometimes we found some of the roles we were trying to get together as a cohort for different reasons, for program and project and things, some of those roles, the start times became different, and it came a little bit hard for us to organize that. But how we've been running it now is that we can so a hiring manager can put forward a role for it to be a returner, and we can work with women returners, and we also started working with STEM returners. So if any of you are in the STEM business, I'd highly recommend them. Their ability to source candidates with the most unique STEM skill sets is, been very, very impressive. So the talent is out there. They have been invaluable for us to find that talent, and that's why we've always partnershiped with expert organizations to do this, because we as a business don't know where to look. We've done similar things, as Natalie said, with the buddy system and the additional coaching and support returners need, which is definitely something to consider. And I like the comparison to kind of a graduate cohort. But my ultimate thing is I've got a returner working for me right now, and they give 110%, and actually part of the the effort they put in is we have to ask them to kind of pull back, because we find a lot of the time they're trying to prove their worth because of their lower confidence from having been out of work for a while. And so you will get a hard worker, and if you choose to go down that scarce skill route, that talent, I can promise you, is out there. So I feel that's a little bit of a summary of Skanska's journey for our returners program, and happy to take questions when we go into the breakout rooms. Simon, back over to you.
Brilliant, Christina, and what a lovely way to end